Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Bookum Nook Show. My name is Kyle Colley, and this is a special episode of Creators Talk Podcast, a podcast for book conversations with your favorite bookish content creators. This episode is brought to you by Bookum, the book community's new and best way to host dynamic online book clubs. Download the app and start your book club today at www.bookumapp.com. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. My guest today is the Eclectic Dawnshaeé Reid. Dawnshaeé is a social and community engagement leader and the creator of Intro to Eclecticism. She is a book club host. She is a content creator. She is a music head. She is a DJ, and she brings light to every room she walks into. Dawnshaeé, welcome to the Creators Talk Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to see Bookum continue to blossom because I know y'all reached out to me when y'all were first getting the app off the ground. So it's so exciting just to see you all making that path and really taking acclaim within the book community. So I'm happy to be here.
I really appreciate that. I actually wanted to kind of start in a different direction. I want to talk a little bit about summer playlists. What's been on your playlist and what music have you enjoyed?
Ooh, okay. So so if you're familiar, on my page, I normally share a song of the day every day. Sometimes the song is either a song that got me through that run that morning or a song that's kind of making me feel good about myself. And so I would say the song most recently that I'm super obsessed with is Glock by Don Toliver.
Okay.
And it's a sample of a Whitney Houston song, and a friend had to tell me about that, and it was just now it makes sense, why it sounds so good, but I'm obsessed with Don Toliver, so that's on my playlist, as well as, let's see, you're gonna have to make me go through my most recently played songs, but I still listen to Janelle Monae's The Age of Pleasure
Okay.
religiously. It is my bread and butter, every time I'm feeling down a little bit and just trying to, pick up the speed, I play that to make me feel good about myself. And I also have this Speak Life into Yourself playlist that I've been building. And it's just a lot of songs that get me in good spirits and just make me feel like I'm talking positively to myself. So.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about when you're talking about sampling is when you go back and kind of do that crate digging and you find the original and you're like, ooh, I got something here. You know what I'm saying? It always just brings a little bit extra to that song. And you're like, oh yeah, y'all don't know about this. Especially even like I was saying, when it comes to you practicing and doing DJ and all that, it just makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit about, so did you grow up in Louisville, Kentucky specifically? Yeah, okay, cool. That's one of my,
Let me
yeah, go ahead.
gotta say Louisville. It's Louisville. It's just
Louisville.
Louisville.
Louisville, yeah.
Yes, I am born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky, and it's really home. I moved away for a while, and it taught me that I really do love it here, and to build a different relationship as an adult with my hometown. So yeah, my entire life.
Growing up, I was still am, but one of my biggest role models was Muhammad Ali, and he's from out there as well. What I know, he talks a little bit about service is service is the rent you pay on this earth. He says it, and I know Miss Chisholm says it as well. So there's a couple people that kind of talk about that. But talk to me about how the reading culture was and how it served or how it kind of brought you into reading.
For me personally, I feel like I didn't realize how much reading meant to me until I was older. Although I was really close with my teachers growing up, I was always excited to read. I didn't see it in the same light as I see it today. It's true, significance in the importance of being able to read. I was just honestly a teacher's pet. So it's just
Yeah.
whatever I could do, to learn a little bit more. So I started reading chapter books in kindergarten, and I was just really just trying to do everything that I could to, make my parents proud and things of that nature. I have a lot of friends that I've met through the online community that talk a lot about the library visits they had growing up and things of that nature, and the library has always existed, but my parents never took me religiously. They would always make sure that I had money for the Scholastic Book Fair while I was at school, but it was never this is a family thing that we do together. um it was just like whatever I was interested in, my parents was just like, okay, we support it. But it
Yeah.
kind of like stopped there. Um, but like growing up, the reading culture, it was just like it was there. It was present. Like I said, we had the Scholastic Book Fair, and I know there are a lot of public schools that don't offer that same type of advantage to be able to browse and buy books from school. But I feel like for me, I didn't understand like I said, the importance of reading until I was an adult. So like looking back on it, I don't think I really like paid close enough attention to how like my peers were reading at
Yeah.
that same time.
So what got you into reading more often? Like what kind of sparked that part of your current journey?
Currently, I feel like it was the same for everyone. Like when COVID hit, I had a lot more downtime and I was also like very isolated and I was just like, I really need to like do something. And so I picked up um like Little Fires Everywhere. Like before then, I was reading like maybe one book a month, like not as heavily reading as I am now, where I'm shooting for like 50, 60 a year. It was really just like one a month and just going with that. But it really took COVID for me to like get back to like understanding like, okay, like I should be having, other interests outside of having to go to work, or
Right.
like what am I doing with all of these extra hours? How do I want to utilize my time? So it got me back into reading.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about like what were some eclectic books that kind of drew that side out of you? Like when you look for books, like what do you consider like an eclectic book?
Well, when I was younger, I thought Junie B. Jones was like the most eclectic person I've ever met because
Right.
that girl was always into some mess. And I was just like, I can rock with her. Cause the B stands for she don't take no BS. And I was just like, I really like Junie B. So I was reading a lot of Junie B. Jones and and a lot of Goosebumps. Like I had the entire Goosebumps collection. So I feel like I was always being like stretched into these different interests and like because Goosebumps can get like very gory for a
Yeah.
kid and very scary. So those were the most eclectic books for me back then. But I would say now, I don't even think it's more so about the book itself being eclectic. It's more so about me being
Yeah.
an eclectic and allowing myself to actually explore different genres. Because back then, my brother would be reading Harry Potter, and I was just like, I would never read sci-fi or fantasy. Like it's never gonna happen. And now I make it a point to try to diversify the way that I read down to the genre. And I think that contributes to my eclectic taste when it comes to literature.
Yeah, speaking of the word eclectic, what drew you to eclecticism? Like when did you find this word? Did someone say it to you one time? Like what drew you to that word so much?
This is so funny because this is the first time anyone's ever asked me like what drew me to the word. So I had got a thesaurus, and I was just like for a while there I was like flipping through the thesaurus and just like vibing out with it. And when I initially made my Bookstagram page, it was more so for like my poetry that I was writing heavily back then, and then I would share like books occasionally, and then just whatever was transpiring in my life because I was living in Hawaii at that time. And so again, it was during COVID. So it was a way for me to like bring people from home into what I'm doing like thousands of miles away. So I discovered the word. I'm pretty sure it was in the thesaurus. And I was just like, this is me. And I was probably like writing something that felt like sometimes like as a poet, you're writing these things and it's like, is this really my voice? Like, who is this person that I'm tapping into? And I had to start like embracing like all of these different versions of me. And I was like, I'm an eclectic. That's me.
And I relate to you a lot because that's kind of how I draw from learning. So I'll, especially even being a founder, I have to draw from all different personalities and characters and ideas. So, and I know Steve Jobs kind of talked about that too, is like being a really good remixer. So like kind of like even when it comes to eclecticism, you bring in a lot of taste. And then out of that, you bring your obviously your soul and who you are as a person. And when you create art, it comes from all these different, you know, things that all these different tastes that are in your style.
was just gonna say, like, I think that's like a really good point of like saying it that way, that like we're remixing a lot of things, because I think a lot of times we kind of get scared to admit that we're inspired by other people. And it's almost like, oh, you're biting someone's swag, or you're trying to, and it's not necessarily that. Like, we are meant to like bring things out of one another. So I may have seen you do something and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I think I want to try it, but do it a little bit differently. I think that should be embraced a lot more, which is what I really try to do with my platform, because it's just like, whoever you are, like, just be that, but also be willing to learn from all of these other avenues and people and art that presents itself to you.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's like a big difference between just like flat out copying and then like that remix of style that we're talking about, where you take a piece, but you do it in such a way that's so unique to you that people go, this is transformed. It's something completely different. It's a new style. So talk to me about some of that, like those intersectionalities, like being Black, a woman, eclectic. Like how do you kind of balance all these different backgrounds in your personal style?
I think I have to catch myself often, because I feel like I'm not free completely of like feeling like I need to box myself in. Even just like these new interests that I've taken on, it's like, how much of it can I showcase on Intro to Eclecticism? And I've had a few people who are like new to following the page, and they're just like, I'm so glad I found you because you do all of these different things. And it's just like, I'm still very scared to like completely branch out and show all of the things, like especially in feed. I'll do it on stories all day,
Yeah.
all day. But when it comes to in feed, it's just like, are people still gonna love me the same? Like, are people still here to see like what the page was initially designed to be? Like, where I am showing all of these eclectic sides of myself. So that's something that I've really been trying to like work through lately. But I also just in my everyday life just try to embrace all of these other parts of me and just who I am as a Black person, as a woman, and as an eclectic. And like, I do it down to the way that I dress. Like, one day you'll see that I'm dressed a certain way, and then another day I'm probably wearing all neutrals, then it's colors, and it's just like, just try to like lean into the person that I am each and every day, and try to remove the boxes whenever I can.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And when it comes to just like some famous eclectics or some people that you admire, like, can you talk a little bit about people that have shaped your worldview?
Yeah, there's quite a few authors, but I want to start with, everyone knows that I love Issa Rae down. I love
Oh,
her so bad because she does so many things and she wears a lot of hats. And I also read her memoir, and it taught me a lot about like her background and how she came to be who she is today a little bit. And just like forging her own path no matter what the naysayers say. Um, I really admire her because of like, she embraces her natural hair for one, and then she also is a writer, a producer. She owns a coffee shop. She just does a lot of things. I also love Janelle Monae just because like when she first came out, like everyone tried to box her in. And so, when The Age of Pleasure dropped, she had a lot of like flack because they was like, why are you appearing on the internet with your breast out and you used to dress like you were a maid? And it was like, she did that to pay homage to her family and where she came from and all that she is. And so now she's like, I've done that. Like, I've done that. And now I can embrace these other parts of myself. I can embrace my sexuality. I can embrace all of these things that make me Janelle. And so I really love her for that. Um, and then authors, I feel like there are so many to name
go
that just
ahead.
do it right. But I'm very obsessed with Audre Lorde. After reading Sister Outsider with my book club, I feel like that was a life-changing book for me personally. And a lot of people in the book club really enjoyed it as well. But she really touches on like all of the intersectionality. And I think we can also consider intersectionality like part of being an eclectic, because it's taking all of these parts of you and allowing them to coexist and not trying to like put them on the back burner. So she did a really great job with that. Um, yeah, I'm gonna stop there because I feel like I'm gonna keep going.
No, you're
I feel
good.
like I'm gonna keep.
But yeah, like even when you're talking about like Issa Rae, like her style was unique. She went from YouTube to then producing content to writing, and then she went, like you said, all the way over to coffee shops and now music. I think sometimes we often try to box people in too much. It's like, all right, you're a writer, you're a book content creator, you're this. But I think and that's honestly why I enjoy this podcast, is because you get to see the whole side of people, right? You get to hear how they think about the world and their world vision outside of just the books. But I do want to talk a bit about that. Like, talk to me about Intro to Eclecticism, books and stuff like that.
So just as far as that, like, I think it's the same way, like, people see that aspect of my interest, like, oh, she does books. Like, I'll go out, like I like to go party. Okay. I
Right.
really like to go party. I like to hang out with my friends. And so I had gone to like this block party last Saturday, and I'm walking down the street with my sister downtown, and this girl gets out the car. She's like, "You're the book girl." And it's like, well, I don't have any books on, like, it's just like yeah, I am, but I'm also like all these other things. Like, I think I'm pretty cool outside of the books too. I like to do other things. So just like allowing people to be other things. And I think it's very hard for people to understand that people are more than what we see on the internet, and what they present. And I know, like, we see a bunch of like those cliche posts where like you only see the good moments, you don't see all of the bad, but it's just like we have to keep that in mind. Like, even when you're seeing these good parts, there are other good parts that this person possesses that they may not want to showcase here. Like, for example, I'm also a mother. I don't share that too often on my page because I like to keep her life private, and like how I navigate motherhood with her private. Just because of like people are weirdos a little bit, so you can't really like always showcase everything. But I like to keep that in mind, like even when I'm going into making content, or when I'm meeting someone new and it's like maybe we got off on the wrong foot, and it's like, there are other things going on with them that doesn't have anything to do with me, that doesn't like deter from like who they present themselves to be on the internet. And yeah.
No, that's well said. It's like some of the coolest, dopest parts about yourself, you don't even have to put on the internet. It's kind of, you share it with your friend, you share it with your family, and they
Yeah.
know the real you and they appreciate you. And then you get the people on the internet that really, enjoy your content, but then they think they know you more than, sometimes it's just funny how that kind of works.
It can just like get to a point where you're kind of scared to even be present on the internet, because like I don't want to let you down. Like I don't want to let these people down because they think this way of me, and I don't want to, get off, like, just go in a terrible direction with them because they have this idea of me. And so I think that goes back to your question of just like feeling boxed in, um and how to push past that.
How do you get, or was there something that you posted on the internet that made you nervous that you still did it anyways and it got even a better reaction than you expected? Or, just kind of like when it comes to being a content creator, as we talk about, being vulnerable or just not, showing what you want to show, like how, has there been moments where you posted content where you're like, this is a little tough. I don't know if I wanted to post it, but it had a good result.
Yeah, there's been a few times. I think like the first video I had that went like quote unquote viral was the banned books roundup that I shared. And so that was the first time I encountered like people in the comments telling me I didn't know what I was talking about. Like, this girl makes no sense because these books are at my local library. And it was just like, oh, this is a moment where I have to like, follow up and teach further like what banned books truly means, what like challenge books really mean, because a lot of people aren't privy to what that terminology, what that phrase means in the book world. So that was like my scariest moment, because I was just like, oh my God, this is pushback. Like, it's not all positive. And then a more recent one was there was a roundup of like queer books that I recently shared for Pride Month, and I had an author who is a very conservative author reach out to me via email and was basically harassing me in my email, and that was very scary because I was just like, oh, this is very strange, like people actually like do these things. And it's just like I was trying to like, fuse the situation, just be like, hey, like, obviously you're not my target audience. And I had to like eventually block her because it was going on too far. Um,
Damn.
and like, some like instances like that are very scary to me because I'm just like, I'm really a like positive, bubbly person. So it's just like whenever I have to deal with confrontation, I'm just like, okay, can we talk for a second? Can we lower our tone and really just think about what we're gonna do right now? So when those moments rise, like now I can handle them much better, but it's still just very scary because the internet has scary people. So
That's interesting. I see that happen, on TikTok a lot. You see book drama all the time. Then now you see it even a little bit more on threads where people are like, yeah, this author said did it. I saw something on Twitter yesterday about an author attacking somebody that got her job fired. I said, this is insane. Because the other thing with Bookum that we really focus on is like this is a reader's platform, like we want to be a place where readers can leave their reviews and they're not subject to an algorithm where you only see it to some people. Like you want people to see your reviews and you want them to be honest reviews. And
mhm.
so we're very much content creator focused, but I know that in that sense, there's always going to be authors that want to connect with readers and connect. And it just makes for like that situation is just very interesting to me. Like that, those attacks that really come from people that are just reading books. And I think when it comes to a little different now on a little tandem, but it's like when it comes to movies and stuff, like we'll watch a movie, we'll say it's bad, not good. We'll jump on the internet, we'll just talk about it. But in the book space, I think sometimes authors want to jump in and just like really hate on a reader when they're just giving an honest opinion. Like if they said I don't like the book, it's not like it's not a hit on who you are as a writer, and that doesn't mean that you won't go on to make even greater pieces of literature. It's just
Yeah.
sometimes that readers like what they like.
Yeah, I think like that's why the reader community is so unique in the way that people like pursue it and become a part of it because like authors will be like, "Well, I wrote a book, but I'm also a reader. Like I should be able to be in these same places. I should be able to talk back to you." And it's just like movie directors and like the whole writer team, they're not in my DMs like telling me like, "Oh, I'm about to put you on the block list." And it's just like I can understand like as an author it probably is very hard because authors have to like market their books, like they have to like sell and pitch themselves to the reader community all day on social media, so it's hard to dodge those reviews when they come in. And I think it's also like reader etiquette sometimes, where they're tagging the author in like 2 and 1 star reviews. It's like you don't have to do that. You don't have to like let them know that you hated their writing, and that they should find a different full-time job. Like you shouldn't do that. Um, but I think like it's just that the community is just so blended, and it started out like that it was okay for authors to be in the same space, but now like the community just looks very different from when I started.
Yeah, no, I agree. Cause yeah, I was doing content with on book content since like 2016. So I definitely agree with you. I also think it's a two-way street. Like I completely understand as an author, you're really like we're talking about, you're a creator in the sense you put something out in the world, you want it to be received. I think also from a creator standpoint is that like the moment right before you post it is that moment of like, this is pure art. Like anything after that is going to be how the critics kind of
Yeah.
throw it each and every way. So you as the creator almost have to believe that what you're putting out right before you get critics' opinions is just great. And the accomplishment of putting it out there is what ultimately will matter, right? At least that's how I kind of think as a content creator.
Yeah, that's how I think too. It's like your book is art. Like that is what you're putting out and people are going to criticize it. Like there are artists out here who are making art every day. And they're not well loved. They're not always receiving positive feedback, but I think like the criticism is a bit different because of like I said, like how the community looks, how people are so open to like readers will go into detail about like every little thing that's wrong. And I think like when we're talking about like art critics, like they're normally like a smaller space, like from what I've seen from like friends and books that I've read, like it's more of a smaller intimate space. So it's just like, oh, there's a few elite people who are bashing my art, like that's fine. Then you get like in the TikTok world, and then there's like hundreds, thousands of people's like just saying like this book is trash. And it's like you can't even escape the criticism at that point as an author. And I kind of feel bad for them when that happens, but I agree. It's a two-way street. Like it's bound to happen, but like where's the balance in it?
Yeah. So let's switch into like community a little bit. Like how do you kind of keep your book club fresh, engaging and like value, help, add value to your members?
Um So since this year, I started hosting also in person, and I think like trying to juggle them both and keeping them both like really exciting has been a challenge within itself. But obviously, I love challenges and I just like to put myself in tough situations. So as far as the virtual book club, I try to keep it to where like there's very little pressure. I feel like there are a lot of book clubs where it's like read these pages during these 3 days and we're gonna meet to talk about it and meet multiple times a month. And I'm just like, that isn't feasible for most of the people who are part of my book club. It's just like we need that one day and then whatever time we can have. I feel like virtual is very hard to like always keep fresh, but I think like being able to switch genres each month really helps a lot. So people can jump in when they want to or they don't want to. And now that I've started to announce the books like quarterly, it gives people more time to read and really dissect the book. But for in person, like I do charge a ticket of $15, and that's mostly just because like to use a space or like to give goodie bags. Like I always give goodie bags at every single meeting. So I don't really pocket any money from the book club. It just all goes back to book club so that it can continue to run like a community. And I also make sure each month we're meeting at a different place. So
Oh,
that
cool.
keeps it really exciting. So in June, we actually went to a National Historic Park that used to be a plantation essentially, because we read a biomythography that took place in this very sacred town, um, for the author's family. And it just felt nice to like visit somewhere in our hometown that most of the people in book club had never been to before. So it was really exciting to see like how everyone was just like learning beyond the book, which is what I really like to do with the book club and just make
That's
it exciting for
that's
adults.
cool. That's cool for sure. Like that whole experience, I can only imagine just like, you read the book, now you're in these spaces. That's actually I love that. Super creative. Talk to me a little bit about how your like background in community engagement, like management, like how does that kind of play into how you facilitate your book club and your conversations?
I think just because I have always did community events, like even in my full-time jobs, I've had to get a lot better at public speaking. Like I used to be very nervous. I'm still very nervous. Like I'm nervous right now. I was nervous for this. But like I've built a lot of confidence through the jobs and the events that I've hosted through my career, and so bringing that to the book club is it's much easier to do now. If I would have tried to do this in my early 20s, it would have been a complete flop. Like, girl, what are you doing? Like these people, like you can't even get 3 words out before you're like freezing up. So like just over time, like actually getting into communities, especially getting into communities that I'm not a part of. So being able to engage with people who are extremely different from me helps me navigate with people who are a part of my community, and people who are different from me now.
Yeah, I don't know if the nerves ever truly go away. I think it's just more like, because I remember one of my college professors talking about that. He was just like, you want to feel nerves because that means you're alive and you care about what you're doing. Like if you had no nerves,
Yeah.
it just is like something you're doing. But so I think that doesn't go away, but it does make for the excitement, like when you're going into things. Because like when you do a good job, or even if you don't do a good job, you're just like, how to either improve it or at least like I did what I needed to do. I put my best foot forward.
Yeah, and that's like and so I also run. And so when I first started running last fall, the Nike Run global head coach or whatever, he says something about nerves. And if you're nervous about something, that just means you're excited about it and you care about it. And so like that philosophy has actually stuck with me. So like anytime I am feeling nervous, I'm just like, we gonna push through it with a smile. We're not gonna cry this time. We got this because we care and we love it. We want to make sure that it's great. And so it's just like a little bit of that positive pressure that we need in order to push through things and see them through.
Yeah,
So I agree.
you just gotta reframe it and then like obviously get your arms going, feel loose and then like it won't fully go away, but again, over time it just kind of gets going. How do you all choose books for your book club?
So I have been having my book club since December of 2021. And so there have
Okay.
been many ways of how I've decided to go about choosing the book club pick. There were times where I would allow everyone to vote on it, and I realized that was creating more work for me. And I kept feeling like I was very, 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 very stressed. And I was just like, okay, this isn't gonna work anymore. Like I can't wait for everyone to vote. So now I honestly just I will pick the books, but there will be times I always ask at the end of every virtual book club discussion, like, do you all have books that you really, really want to read as a unit? And they will let me know. And then if it fits within like the genres that we need to read for the remainder of the year, like I make note of it and we make it a pick. For example, like our September pick is Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower. And so they really wanted to read Octavia Butler. They was like, I've never read it. And I was like, well, I've never read it. I've never read any of Butler's work either. So this makes for a perfect experience for all of us to really get into her work and see how we like it and to discuss it. So now it's really just like allowing the community to still exist, but not creating like all of these extra layers of like, I was sending out Google forms and I was just like, hey, can y'all, I'm like, I can't do this every single month. Like I wasn't announcing them quarterly. I was announcing them once each month. And it was just like, oh, when's the next one getting announced? And it's just like, let me go through the form. Let me find what we can read. And so it's just like, now it's more, I feel like the process is much smoother since I do it quarterly and I really take control of picking the books, but also bringing in their feedback whenever I can.
No, it's good because like even like when it comes to how we do at book clubs, like one of the main things we want to do is like bring everything into a book club. So you don't have to like do a Google form and do a Discord and do this. You're just like trying to get everything down into one thing. So like even what you're talking about, like is really kind of like how we think about it. Is like if we include and wrap everything into it, you don't have to do all these other things to like kind of run an easy, straightforward book club. In doing that, like how do you think about like questioning? Like how do you how do you structure your book club discussions and meetings when you all meet?
I try to make it as chill as possible, so it's not like, "Oh, this is a book report." Like, I like to allow the conversation to just flow. Like, sometimes when there's books where it's like, "Oh, it's not the most favorable," I'll try to pull some questions, to keep the conversation going, but for the most part, all the time, the conversation just is, like, going, and I always kick off the virtual discussions with, like, "How did y'all feel about the book?" Like, if you do ratings, like, share your rating, and I also make it to where it's like, you don't have to have your camera on. You can go off in the chat the whole time. Like you honestly can just be present however you want to be present. And we just enjoy each other's company. There's a lot of people in book club where it's just like, I can't wait to finally meet y'all in person because like we know so much about each other. And it's just like, I'm grateful for being able to like reach more people and connect with more people far out, but it's just like I want to hang out in real life.
Right? Yeah, bring it like you said, have those real life events that you're having too. I want to shift a little bit into you as a writer too. Like, talk to me a little bit about your writing process. I know you do like blogging as well, like in book reviews. Kind of how do you think about writing?
I am very sad about writing because I feel like it's taken a back burner because of all of the events that I've started to host. So I'm not posting on my blog as frequently. I'm not freelance writing as much as I was last year. And so it's it's really like I miss it. I miss it so much because I feel like one thing people always ask avid readers is like, "Are you writing a book? Are you writing a book?" And it's just like, I want to so bad. Like y'all don't even know, but my brain is like in all these other places and it's always in these books. So it's just like it's something that I am striving to get back to. But as far as how I go about writing them, it's really comes down to I call my book reviews on my blog book revelations. So they're books that honestly moved me to write. Like I'm not writing a review. I don't write reviews for every book. I will do my best to make a like 90-second like recap video of the book, but as far as writing for every book, it just doesn't happen. One, because I don't always have time, but once I do have time, it always aligns with a book that absolutely, truly moved me. So that's when I'll share it on there.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And even when you're talking about kind of like how you choose books to review, I think that's kind of how I think about with blogging. Is like I have to be inspired a little bit when it comes to blogging because otherwise it just becomes like a really tough task. If you just have an idea that you really want to like rant about or show people that a side of it that no one's talking about, then you feel like very creative in blogging. If not, it's just like, what am I saying? What am I going to say next?
Yeah, it's just like I'm sitting here looking at my laptop like, "Girl, you have no words." And I think, like, being okay with not having words has been transformational for me because 'cause I'm just like, "There's nothing to say. Why am I forcing myself to say anything?"
No, it's facts.
So,
Let's go into your reading preferences a little bit. Like, talk to us a little bit about what you're currently reading. What do you plan to read next? And what did you read last? My fault.
the last book I read was Looking for Smoke. It's right here. I'm not looking for smoke, Looking for a Sign by
Okay.
Susie Dent. And this one was really cool. I really liked it. The person that she ends up with, it wasn't my first choice, but I'm happy that she's happy. And that's how you gotta like walk away from books. Like just I'm happy you're happy. And that book was very different because it focused a lot on astrology. Um and I was like, oh, okay, like I haven't been this invested in astrology like this. And it had me like checking the CoStar app, seeing like, oh, okay, are Geminis really this way? Or Aquarius really like this? So just being able to like get into a book that was fun was really nice. I am starting Jay Ellis's Did Everyone Have an Imaginary Friend? Just because I'm planning to go see him in DC
Oh, cool.
August. So I loved Insecure, so, like, Down, I loved it Down, so I read Issa Rae's memoir, and I also read Yvonne Orji's memoir this year, so it's just like, "Oh, this is cool." Now I'm checking off, like, the big 3 of Insecure, so really interesting, and then after that one, I'm kinda torn between Annie LeBlanc Is Not Dead Yet and Swift River. It just depends on how Jay Ellis's book makes me feel, like, if I'm ready to go into historical fiction or something more contemporary, but
Nah,
I had to make sure I had those because I like seeing the cover. I think
nah, that's
everybody
cool. That's cool. Let's get into some rapid fire questions. All right.
okay.
What is a great book no one is talking about right now?
Ooh, this is tough. Okay, I think they're not talking about it because it's not out yet, but it's The Blonde Dies First by Joelle Wellington. So good. It's a
Oh.
YA thriller. So good.
What book had the best discussion in your book club?
Ooh, the best discussion. I would have to say Kennedy Ryan's Before I Let Go.
Okay. What's the last book you read that you couldn't put down?
Um It's been a tough year for me. Honestly, it was Pomegranate by Helena Lane Lee. Did not put
Okay.
it in.
And then what genre of books do you enjoy the most?
Literary, historical, and YA.
Cool. All right, this one's kind of a little bit on the spot. I saw that you just did your like best books of the 21st century. So I just want to know like what kind of inspired these books or like which one why these ones pull the most out of you?
Most of those, okay, I feel like I'll have to go through each one individually.
Oh,
Um, but most of them have like some significant meaning to me. Um, and just the experience that I had overall while reading it. So for example, the love songs of W.B. Du Bois, I did like this very spontaneous, like 10-day reading blitz, like just on Instagram, like on top of my book club. And like so many people joined. Like it was like 150 people. We were just
wow.
in an Instagram DM talking about this book, trying to read it in 10 days. And for the book to be like 800 pages, that's a lot to try to cram into a reading blitz. And so a lot of people like committed to it and stuck through with it. I personally didn't read it in 10 days, and they all know that because it was a heavy book. But it's probably one of the best historical fiction books I've ever read. And I was just like, the experience of reading it with the community made it even better. So a lot of those are attached to like reading with community or books that make me cry. I'm obsessed with books that make me cry. A lot of people gravitate towards books that just make them feel good, but me, I love a good sob session with my books. So a lot of those did that for me.
You read my mind because the next question was what was the last book that made you cry?
The last book that made me cry. Mm, I honestly can't remember. Like I said, I feel like I've just been having a very tough reading year. As far as like finding all the books that I absolutely love. I feel like I've read a lot of good books, but like As far as great, great, great books, I feel like the more you read, it's harder to like say,
Right.
"Oh, this is the best book," because it's like, well, I've already had a book give me a very outer body experience. So it's like you're always expecting your next book to top the other one. So I honestly cannot remember the last book that made me cry.
Yeah, it's like every now and then you get that one book that's it's just different, right? But until then, you kind of just read a couple and then you're okay, this one's special too. So it's like I feel like mine has been more like every third or fourth book now. But last question on the rapid fires: what book would you put into one of those like my free libraries?
Like because I don't like it or because I
Now,
think
hopefully, because you do and like it, because I feel like not enough people put good books into those.
um I would always put The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead in there just because I
Okay.
think it's probably one of I keep saying this. It's one of the best books I've ever read. And it made me really love Colson Whitehead. And I love what he did with the historical fiction in there because it's still fairly recent, the school that it's inspired by that was closed in Florida. So it's interesting to see like how he um made that story so realistic. That's a book that really made me cry. Like that book made me cry. And I honestly that list is full of books that made me cry. This Chain Gang All Stars made me cry. It made me cry, and that was last summer, so
See, so that's the top 10. If you want to cry, these are the top tens right here.
come come hang out with me if you wanna cry.
See, all right. So the way we end this podcast, it's a two-sided question, but you can obviously have two different answers to it. What would you like to see more of in the book world?
I would like to see more books by Black authors get the marketing funds that they deserve because we see a lot of mediocre books that get pushed in our face all the time, and it's just like, "What the hell is this?" Like, why did y'all dedicate so much money to this book? So just seeing more Black authors get what they truthfully deserve. And I also want to see more Black content creators. Like I know that we are growing, but I would love to just keep seeing it grow because the publishing industry, for whatever reason, thinks that like Black people don't read, and that's why I think that's a full like to my original point that like Black authors aren't getting the funding that they deserve because they think Black people don't read. So like just seeing more of our faces like out and present because the social media like book space is it's really driving the book um market right now. So like being able to see more Black people there will make me so happy.
Yep, I agree with and especially like even when it comes to like the marketing and all that, like social media, book content creators in a large part play such a big role in this whole thing. So it's like, even with what we're doing, is like making sure that they have opportunities to obviously monetize, have community, have the ability to tell the stories they want to in a unique way. I feel like content creators in the book space kind of get the last end, but are expected to do the most sometimes. So like I definitely agree with everything you said there. And on the other side, what would you like to see less of in the book world?
To what we was talking about earlier, just less of the drama. I feel like it can easily become a very negative space. I feel like Instagram is still holding on to being a very positive space for book creators, but as far as like TikTok and threads, like it can get very scary over there because I'm just like, why are we so evil? Like it's okay to have a difference of opinion, but like can we like have a constructive conversation around it that isn't along the lines of like you're not a real reader or like just all of the hate that comes with it and all the judgment, which I mean you can't really take that out of people, but I feel like there's ways to like see less of the evil side of it.
Yeah, I think it's because social media is like they aggregate and they do the algorithm for like what gets the most clicks, and usually like obviously hate and disrespect and craziness kind of gets the most clicks, therefore it gets pushed to you the most, and sometimes that is really sad. So Dawnshaeé, thank you so much for being on the Bookum Creators Talk podcast. Please let us know what's coming up in your world, something that we can support, or where we can find you on the internet.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. You can always find like all of my events on intro to eclecticism.com. You can find me everywhere at intro to eclecticism. I try to keep everything updated as much as possible and send out newsletters when I can. But you can always find me on Instagram stories. I'm always there.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you again. And yeah, keep shining your light. It's really a pleasure to see all the amazing things you do in the book space.
Thank you so much for having me.